and La Liga fans, welcome to another edition of the Villarreal update provided to you by Villarreal USA with me, Jamie Campbell. And today we're recapping Villarreal's crazy 4-3 defeat to FC Barcelona. A game that's difficult to put into words from a Villarreal or Barcelona perspective, really. Barcelona, like I said, came up 4-3 on top, a big away win for them, but in truth, I don't think any side really deserved to come out on top. Villarreal were very good to start, I thought, actually, but somehow went 2-0 down. Barcelona just ruthless in taking their chances. A couple of things went their way in the build-up to the goals. And then somehow Villarreal came back to 3-2 up, and he thought, let's get a better look to the scoreline from Villarreal point of view. And somehow then it all came crashing down in the second half. Barcelona scoring twice, Robert Lewandowski with the winner to make it 4-3. And Villarreal really struggled to recover from that and kind of fell flat a little bit in the last 10 to 15 minutes. But really a kind of a strange performance in the second half from Villarreal really undid them. And Quique Setién kind of outlined that after the game, putting his team's performance in the second half down as the reason for the collapse. And it was a strange one because Villarreal had so much confidence going forward in the first half and caused Barcelona problems from minute one, even if they didn't take the chances as well as they should have. In the second half, they came out and they were just totally flat from in terms of sitting back and waiting for Barca to play, giving them too much space to play with the ball. And Barcelona are a good enough team to go and punish you when they have that space. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Barcelona were particularly good in this game. A very strange formation they played. Sergio Roberto was out to position just so many times. They played with two fullbacks and wingers, and somehow it looked like they had three at the back without the ball. Villarreal were constantly switching the ball over to Alfonso Pedraza, who had a great game down the left side, and Barcelona's right side was completely unguarded for much of the game. There was always that switch ball on for Villarreal to make, and they created so many chances from it, playing that ball over the top. So Barcelona defensively so fragile and for me didn't deserve to win this game, but neither did Villarreal, don't get me wrong, because while Villarreal created some class of their own going forward, put some really good moves together. Solot's goal in particular was a brilliantly worked goal. Gerard Moreno with a beautiful through ball. Villarreal were just as bad at the back as Barcelona. So many mistakes in giving the ball away. Parejo gave the ball away more than usual. Capu gave the ball away with some silly mistakes. And then the tracking back again, the lack of energy. Parejo, while he had a good game in some aspects, a little bit lazy getting back into position. Capu didn't look like he was, I don't want to say fully match fit, I'm sure he is, but just didn't quite look like he had the sharpness to get back in position. Alejandro Baena put some good work in, it has to be said. But yes, defensively again, all over the show, and that is perhaps to be expected. Villarreal lost Pau Torres this summer, the star centre-back, with Raul Albiol struggling with fitness issues early in this season. They really haven't had anyone to offer continuity in the heart of centre-back. We've seen Jorge Cuenca and Gavia in that centre-back partnership more often than not. And yes, it's a new partnership, and they're going to be punished for things at this stage in the season. Jorgensen, goalkeeper for Villarreal at the moment, Philip Jorgensen, pulled off some really good saves actually, but his distribution on the ball wasn't brilliant. But I think in his defence, that could be said of pretty much everyone on the day. There were some good passes, and there was some really, really silly passes, giving the ball away, especially in that second half. Villarreal just couldn't keep hold of the ball. Barcelona having too much of it. And as Setién said after the game, Villarreal are not a good enough side out of possession to be able to defend a constant wave of attacks. They're going to give up chances in that way, especially defensively at the moment, given the lack of continuity they've had in the side over the summer, losing so many key players. So Villarreal's game plan really relies upon having the ball. And that's why this was such a fascinating battle between two sides who like to have possession. But Villarreal just coming up short because of the fact they couldn't defend as well as Barcelona without the ball. And Barcelona did not defend well at all themselves. They gave up so many chances. And Solot was unlucky to have a goal before he scored his first as well. So Villarreal could have gone ahead at that stage. I think it was 0-0. When he had a goal disallowed early on, and a different game perhaps could have played out. But Barcelona's so fragile as well, but they just had that clinical edge. Ferran Torres come off the bench and and changed the game. I mean, obviously had a brilliant game, and everyone can't stop talking about him today, and rightly so. But Villarreal, like to focus on the yellows, lots of positives to take from the performance, I guess. You go against a team like Barcelona after the pre-season that Villarreal had. I mean, we've spoken about this already, about how they've lost some of their best players and how the expectations have dropped around the club. But to go and come back from 2-0 down to lead 3-2, there's so many positives in it. I think Villarreal is so much more dangerous going forward than many expected them to be after losing Nicholas Jackson, after losing Samu Chukwueze. But that defensive fragility is something most of us saw coming. It was there in pre-season. Villarreal just haven't settled into a defensive unit just yet. Foyt put in a good performance. Pedraza put in a good performance. The centre-backs, it wasn't all disaster and it wasn't all their fault. Cuenca and Gabia, I didn't think it wasn't. There weren't that many standout errors, but they were left exposed too often by their midfield, who gave the ball away too often. I thought Solot held the ball up very well, but then his wingers weren't quite as quick as they should have been, particularly in the second half, in giving him support and keeping the ball at the top end of the pitch. Because that second half really made a difference. Whereas we saw good runs early on from Baena to support Solot, in the second half, Villarreal sat deep. It was going up to Solot. He was keeping the ball, trying to keep the ball. And then such a big gap between him and the midfield and the wingers who were trying to make up the ground after sitting so deep defensively. And that really cost Villarreal. If they just kept the ball, they really could have come away with something against, like I said, a Barcelona team who really didn't impress in most aspects of this game. But that's how football goes, folks, and a big kind of heartbreaking defeat for Villarreal after such a valiant performance in some ways. But like I said, this should have been the game, but neither team won because both teams showed moments of class and moments of disasters. And it's such a strange game. Another entertaining one between these two sides, a 4-4 draw, of course, a couple of years ago. Yeah, I thought one more thing about the substitutions as well. I think this is something Setién said before Villarreal conceded those two winning goals, as it proved to be. They tried to make two substitutions, and I think that could have made a big impact. I was at the game myself, and I said just before, Villarreal need energy in this midfield right now. They're just losing that battle. They couldn't make the substitutions quick enough, and after going behind, it was a strange reaction, I thought, from Villarreal. I mean, you've got I thought Ben Brereton Diaz should have come on earlier for starters. He's impressed in against Mallorca, but he wasn't trusted to start this game, and he wasn't really trusted off the bench. He came on the last couple of minutes, put a good shot in right at the end. But the kind of physicality and the directness Villarreal needed that, and they missed that from Jeremy Pino, who's injured at the moment, still not training with the first team. And then you've got Solot, who's 6 foot, well over 6 foot. Villarreal brought him in to be that kind of option B, that plan B, that when all else is failing, when this possession-based game isn't working, when you can't find holes in the box, Solot can be that man to win headers, get him the end of crosses, and still, perhaps it's through habit as much as anything else, still Villarreal try to play deep, try to drag Barcelona out and play short passes into the box. And this was right up until deep in stoppage time, which was completely perplexing. I mean, Barcelona weren't going to bite. They weren't going to expose themselves by committing too many players when they one goal up away from home. It's a strange kind of game plan at the end. And that's something Villarreal really need to work on. For one, they need to work on positioning themselves out off the ball, sitting in as a unit and not giving up any space, because they gave up so much space yesterday on Sunday without the ball. So many chances, which cannot happen, especially at home. You can't score 3 goals at home and still lose. It's insanity. Whoever you're playing against, and B, they have to work on this option B. They have plan B. If they can't pass their way into the box, then why not put a long ball into the box? It's not, I know it's kind of against Villarreal's culture in terms of the main system of play, but football's about more than one system of play. And when you've got someone like Solot, who's on the pitch till the very end, he's able to win headers. And if he's not scoring headers, he's able to flick the ball on and cause problems. Get the ball in the box. I mean, come on. I mean, it's perplexing. Barcelona, not particularly tall bunch of players. I've got a tall squad, and you've got an advantage there. And that's the same across La Liga for the most part. Put the ball in the box. If you just keep pumping those balls in, it's not pretty at times, and that's not what we want to see Villarreal do as their main system of play. But when the chips are down, when you're 1 goal down, there's 2 or 3 minutes left in the game. It's what Sort is there for. He's there to be a plan B. He's there to offer something different from what Villarreal have had over the last few years. And still, they're just not giving him the service to let him do what he does best. Yes, he can play hold up play, and he showed yesterday he can make good runs. But this is a physical player who likes to dominate in the air, and you've got to give him a chance to do that. Especially late in the game when Villarreal were out of ideas, out of energy. They looked completely devoid of energy in the last kind of 10 minutes. And it's perplexing to see that plan B not utilised, but it is how it is for Villarreal, a 4-3 defeat, and they learned some lessons from this. I'm sure they'll take some positives from this. Certainly the way they came back from 2-0 down to lead 3-2. I mean, there are a few teams in La Liga who are going to do that against Barcelona this season, whether it's home or away. So there are some positives, plenty of positives, I think. But yes, there's a lot to work on as far as Quique Setién and his men are concerned, certainly defensively. And it's not, Setien's already said that his team are not comfortable without the ball. Well, that's not an excuse. It's going to wash through the season. You have to work on these weaknesses, and you'd hope that they would. And we've got 4 days left of the transfer window, and you'd like to see Villarreal sign a centre back now to kind of add competition to the centre back partnership. And Ronald Albiol is going to come back in as well. And I would argue as well that Villarreal need another winger to create more competition at that end of the pitch. Of course, Yerry Pino still has to come back in, Villarreal's best winger, arguably, aside from Gerard Moreno. Elias came on yesterday and did pretty well. So I think just a little bit more quality in certain areas would help Villarreal, but we'll see what they do between now and the end of the window. And a short week for them as well. They're preparing to face Cadiz on Friday. And with that, we'll wrap this up. It's been a disappointing one. It's hard to drum up energy after a game like that. 4-3 defeat just sapped all the energy. Got so excited and crushing heartbreak at the end. But hey, this is how it is sometimes against the bigger clubs in particular. And Villarreal move on to that game against Cadiz, and a game they'd expect to win even away from home. And before then, we'll have another video, another podcast talking about that game and how Villarreal can go about picking up their second win of the season. So until then, don't forget to subscribe, check out the Villarreal Update channel, and of course head to Villarreal USA for more in-depth coverage of Villarreal in English.